Hey everyone, wanted to give you my full review of my 2021 718 Spyder. I really like this car. I think it's the best looking, reasonably mass production Porsche on the road right now. It's got great chassis balance. I mean, just incredible. It's hard to make it understeer or oversteer without trying, but you can induce either of them fairly easily. The steering is fantastic for electric steering. I hate having to make that caveat, but I did own a McLaren 600 LT, and it certainly its steering certainly put this car's steering to shame in terms of feel. But this steering is pretty good. I mean, it's very precise, it's accurate. You can feel exactly what the tires are doing, the front tires are doing, and I like it a lot. Performance-wise, this car feels really balanced in terms of power. It's certainly not the fastest thing on the road, but it's quick. 414 horsepower from a fairly torquey 4-liter naturally aspirated motor. Revs to 8,000 RPM. Sounds great when you rev it out. It's got good punch in the mid-range, great throttle response, and it continues to pull harder the more you rev it out. So it feels like a good motor. Porsche reports that PDK drops half a second from the manual GT4 and Spyder's 0 to 60 time. Motor Trend actually tested the GT4 at 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds with a foot of rollout, like the drag strip, and an 11.8 quarter mile at 117.5 miles an hour. Now those times are quick, but compared to PDK GT3, this is 0.4 of a second slower to 60 and 0.6 of a second slower in the quarter mile. But more importantly, it's going 9 miles an hour slower. So there's no contest. The GT3 is definitely faster, and the top end is definitely better. I just sold a PDK 2018 GT3, which I loved. GT3 definitely sounds better. It definitely revs out better, faster, and has more pull in the top end. A PDK Spyder or GT4 is actually quicker than a manual GT3 in a quarter mile run, at least in terms of elapsed time. The manual GT3 still has a slightly higher trap speed, but it's not as fast as the PDK GT3. And the PDK GT4 and Spyder will get there faster. Manual GT3 obviously passes it pretty quickly thereafter, but it is interesting to see that it does beat a manual GT3 by 0.3 of a second in the quarter mile. And the GT4 and Spyder are $40,000 cheaper right now, but with the crazy pricing of GT3s, the difference is likely greater. And that said, none of the cars are actually easy to buy right now, with used car values being as nutty as they are. The other thing I really like about this motor, especially compared to the 981 Boxster, I had a 2016 Boxster Spyder, and one of the problems with that car is it only had 375 horsepower, and a lot of that delta came from the intake manifold and tuning around it. The Spyder had a decent amount of peaks and valleys in the power curve as you revved it up, so you didn't always know what you were going to get when you stomped on the pedal. There were definitely flat spots at certain RPMs that I didn't enjoy. The 718 Spyder gets rid of all that. It has a nice clean power curve that just keeps pulling harder the more you rev it up. It feels light, it's really easy to drive, intuitive, and just a whole lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So far, everything I've mentioned is very positive, but there are a couple of things that I don't like about the car. As much as I love the styling, and a lot of that styling comes from the huge humps on the back, the thing I don't like about it is the top. One of the things that we've gone to with most of the world is convertible tops that you can close while you're driving the car. So as you're pulling into a parking spot to leave the car, or if you get caught in a sudden rain shower, you can put the top up without having to pull over and stop. Well, not this one. The 718 Spyder requires you to stop the car completely, get out of the car, and fiddle with the top to put it up. I'll put a link in the video. I'll put a link in the comment section so that you can see a video of what that looks like, but the top is a pain. I did learn recently that you can open the top from the key, and what that does is you can walk up to the car, hold the unlock button, and it will automatically unlatch the top from the windshield header, and then pop the trunk. So it's pretty easy to walk up to the car, flop the top down, and go. It's probably less than a 30-second exercise. In the rest of the world, it turns out you can also close the top that same way. Sure, you actually have to grab the fabric piece and pull it up out of the slot and manually close the trunk, but then latching onto the windshield header, you just hold the lock button and the latch grabs the windshield header and closes it, and then closes the window. And in the US, apparently Porsche was too afraid that us dumb Americans would chop our fingers off or something along those lines, and there is no ability to close the top from the key, which means that to close the top when I park the car, what you have to do is fiddle with the top, get the trunk seated, plug the little stanchions into the trunk, and then sit down in the car, put the key in, turn it back to the on position, grab the windshield header, hold it down, and then grab the top close button to close the latch. It's not that bad, but it's annoying enough to where it takes a minute or two when you could have just walked away from the car and left it if you're going to leave the car. So that's a little bit of a bummer. And the 718, for some reason, is missing some pretty key options. I'll talk about this a little bit more later when I'm walking through the interior of the car, but there's three things that the car is unable to be ordered with, which are axle lift, entry and drive, and seat memory. So axle lift is probably the biggest one. Yeah, look, I get it. The Porsche makes the front lifts disposable and cheap, and they're easy to replace in your driveway. They cost about $250 if you can get them from a local place and not have to pay for shipping. But they are kind of a pain to pull out. It's easy to break the tabs, and axle lift would just solve that. Plus, you wouldn't have this really annoying scraping noise when you pull out of a large driveway. Entry and drive, which is the name for Porsche's keyless entry and keyless go, is kind of table stakes for most cars these days. I don't really care about having to hit the unlock button instead of having the car automatically unlock when I grab the door handle, and it's nice not to have the car lock and unlock itself when I'm washing it based on contact with the switch. But the biggest annoyance is that I constantly sit down into the car and then realize that I haven't gotten the key out of my pocket, and you have to take the key out of your pocket and plug it into the dash and turn it to start the car. So it would be nice if Porsche at least had that capability, but they don't. And it's annoying because it's not like it adds any additional weight to that. And the last thing is seat memory. This only matters with the 18-way seats, since there are 18 different ways you can adjust them, but it'd sure be nice if Porsche had included the ability to buy seat memory if you really wanted it. The other thing that's annoying is because there's no seat memory, there's no dip down when you put the car in reverse with a side view mirror. Again, not a big deal, but you know. My Spyder is optioned the way I like a street car. It's obviously not set up as a track car with the 18-way seats and the no Alcantara delete. It has full leather with contrast stitching, the red seat belts, the navigation system, Bose stereo, the multifunction GT Sport wheel, the red gauges. I like the fabric door pulls. They look cool. They don't exactly do anything useful, and I'm not sure that they're actually lighter than the regular ones, but this car also has the brushed aluminum trim, which I like in this application. Certainly the carbon fiber options are nice, but I feel like the brushed aluminum is subtle and timeless, adds a nice texture to the door. This car has the steel brakes, no PCCBs, and the slightly darker gray colored wheels, which look really nice to me. I'm glad they put the GT4 spec wheels in the Spyder this time. Really enjoy the way the 718 Spyder looks. This is a very well proportioned car. I really like the speedster humps on the top cover, the aggressive wheel fitment, the low ride height, the big red brake calipers setting it off. The front bumper is less differentiated from the regular 718s than the 981 was, but I still think it's a great look. This doesn't have any more fender flare than the regular cars, but the ride height and the meaty wheels really make it look good. I also really like the lower bumper treatment. The split exhausts, I actually prefer the dual in the middle versus the two split ones, but overall, I really like the way these cars look. Please excuse the swirls. Black cars are a huge pain.